You think a fast throw starts in your arm. It doesn't. By the time your hand snaps forward, motion is already moving from your feet through your hips and torso. Humans combine speed, useful accuracy, and repeatability exceptionally well among primates. One influential synthesis places that body plan in Homo erectus roughly 2 million years ago. How does the whole body create the throw? And how much of its origin can evidence support? A powerful overhand throw is a whole-body movement. Biomechanists call it a kinetic chain, body parts passing motion forward in sequence. A little like a whip, before the hand accelerates, the feet press into the ground, the hips turn, and the torso begins to unwind. Combining speed with accuracy is difficult because the two pull against each other. As a projectile moves faster, a small error at release becomes more costly. A powerful arm alone does not solve that timing problem. In a study analyzing throws from 20 baseball players, researchers found that most of the mechanical work, the energy put into the movement, was generated at the hips. The lower body provides the foundation, and the trunk gives that motion direction and rotational speed. The arm gets the highlight reel. The rest of the body did the setup. Energy moves from larger central body segments towards smaller, faster ones. The hips help drive the torso. The torso helps drive the upper arm, and the motion continues toward the hand and projectile. Every transfer has to arrive at the right moment, because extra speed is useless if the release falls apart. The elbow and wrist move extremely fast near the end, but that does not mean they created all the power themselves. Much of their motion is driven by energy arriving from larger segments closer to the center of the body. That is why throwing with mostly the forearm feels nothing like a full-body throw. No single joint wins this contest. Several joints hand the same movement forward without breaking the sequence. But passing energy along is only half the answer. The shoulder also stores some for later. As the hips and torso rotate forward, the upper arm turns backward at the shoulder. That backward turn is called external rotation. It stretches elastic structures across the shoulder before the arm races forward. This is elastic energy storage. Stretch now, spring back later. During acceleration, the stored energy is released and adds to the muscular work already moving through the body. Experiments that restricted parts of torso rotation and arm cocking reduced throwing performance, supporting their role in the motion. That helps explain why a skilled throw can look calm until the final instant. Much of the motion has already been organized before the hand becomes the fastest thing you see. Calling the shoulder a catapult is useful, although there is no tiny siege engine under your skin. The backward cocked arm is not wasted movement. It helps load the system before the system unloads. And this is not free energy. The tissues return energy that muscles and body motion helped put there. The advantage is timing. Load it during one part of the throw, release it rapidly during another. That elastic trick depends on the geometry of the body performing it. There is no single throwing bone and no switch in the skeleton labeled fast projectile. One influential biomechanical model emphasizes three features working together. First is a relatively tall, mobile waist, which lets the hips and torso rotate somewhat independently. Second is a more laterally oriented shoulder in plain English, a shoulder joint facing more toward the side of the body. That orientation helps shoulder motion line up with the rotating torso. Third is relatively low humeral torsion. The term describes the built-in twist between the shoulder and elbow ends of the upper arm bone. In this model, that geometry helps provide more motion during arm cocking and improves elastic loading before acceleration. If the terminology disappears from memory, keep three images: a mobile middle, a shoulder facing more sideways, and a twist inside the upper arm. Their importance lies in how they help the body wind and load the throw. None of these features works as a lone explanation. The traits also appeared as an evolutionary mosaic, not as one sudden anatomical package, and they have consequences beyond throwing. A skeleton inconveniently does not come with an instruction label. That matters when we try to date the first human capable of a truly fast throw. One influential synthesis argues that the relevant configuration appears together roughly 2 million years ago in Homo erectus. That places the possible capacity for high-speed throwing surprisingly deep in the history of our genus. But the Homo erectus shoulder is incomplete, and researchers have reconstructed its position in different ways. A relatively short clavicle in the Nariokotomi skeleton once supported a more forward-facing reconstruction that would have limited some throwing motion. Later analysis argued that clavicle length alone does not require that reconstruction. The disagreement still matters. Even a perfect reconstruction would show anatomical capability, not a recorded throw. Fossils are evidence, not slow-motion footage, They do not preserve projectile speed, skill, weapon type, frequency, or motive. The proposed anatomical date is also far older than the clearest surviving projectile technologies. Stone and bone can preserve where wood often disappears, leaving a large stretch of the story with very few surviving weapons. A sharpened wooden shaft could vanish in the same conditions that preserve a cut-marked bone or a stone tool. That makes the missing evidence a preservation problem, as well as an evolutionary puzzle. At Kingera South in Kenya, animal remains show persistent hominin access to carcasses around 2 million years ago that establishes repeated use of animal resources. It does not establish how a particular carcass was acquired or whether a thrown weapon was involved. Much later, points from Gademotta in Ethiopia, older than 279,000 years, preserve shapes and damage interpreted as hafted projectile use. Interpreted matters here. Their function is inferred from manufacture, fractures, and context rather than watched directly. Rare wooden finds allow a more practical test. Could heavy prehistoric weapons actually work in flight? Experiments with full-size replicas of wooden spears from Schöningen show that they can function as hand-thrown projectiles. In one study, 6 javelin-trained athletes made 120 throws with the replicas. They recorded aimed hits at distances up to 20 meters, with accuracy falling as distance increased. The experiment did not test penetration or wounding. The researchers demonstrated ballistic possibility, which is an academic way of saying the replicas could fly and hit a target in this test. It is not a replay of how every original spear was used or proof that prehistoric technique was identical. Put together, the archaeology gives us a staircase with missing steps. Later projectiles show that the behavior existed. Rare preservation keeps the first date unclear, and those later weapons do not explain by themselves why much earlier anatomy evolved. A thrown weapon extends the distance at which a person can strike during a dangerous encounter. That makes hunting a strong candidate for a selective pressure favoring faster, more accurate throwing. Greater reach could let a hunter act without beginning every attack within an animal's immediate reach. Plausible is not the same as demonstrated. Another published hypothesis argues that throwing first mattered in conflicts or threat displays and became central to hunting later. Defense, competition, hunting, or several uses together could all reward reach, speed, and accuracy. The current record does not select one original motive, and a later spear point is not a time machine for every earlier anatomical change. Hunting fits the evidence as a strong proposal. The exact evolutionary story remains debated. The same kinetic chain that creates projectile speed also places substantial loads on the shoulder and elbow. Modern sport can repeat those loads again and again at near maximum effort, a very different pattern from simply possessing the capacity to throw. That exposure is better understood as a powerful capacity meeting a modern schedule that can accumulate far more repeated load. Anatomy makes high-speed throwing possible, while practice teaches the nervous system to coordinate the sequence. Skill refines when the body rotates, when the arm accelerates, and when the fingers let go. That timing helps manage the trade-off between speed and accuracy. So the modern injury connection is not one badly designed joint or one simple cause. It is a powerful whole-body system meeting repeated high-intensity use. Humans throw so fast because the legs and hips start the motion, the torso transfers it, and the shoulder briefly stores elastic energy. The arm releases that energy through a coordinated sequence, while learned timing sends the projectile in a useful direction. The immediate mechanism is well supported. Its first date and original evolutionary purpose are less certain. So when a ball seems to fly straight out of someone's hand, look at everything that moved before the hand did. The throw began at the ground, passed through an ancient body-wide system, and ended in a release lasting only an instant.